We will just wait a minute to let the participants load up and get started. I hope it's okay. Sure. So I think we could get started because I hope that participants join in as the windows open. But we could get started, and I'm going to ask my colleagues to also share the slides that we are going to be using for this conversation. Welcome you all of the panelists and participants joining us today for this webinar. We are going to be focusing on today's webinar, specifically on electric mobility action planning at the city level. This is the first of a series that we are doing, looking closely at what cities can do for promoting e-vehicle adoption at their jurisdiction level. And when we say cities, we mean the geography of cities. So a number of actors led by the Municipal Corporation Development Authority, but a number of these actors need to come together so that we have a comprehensive plan and a set of actions clearly defined that help us go through this journey of EV transition in line with what the national government is hoping we start to see on ground. Number of the cities are already starting to take these actions on ground, and some of them will be joining us today and talking with us, telling what they are doing and how they are doing it. As we move on, I would want to just share a few slides about how we are seeing this at ICLEI and take you through the conversation. I'd ask my colleagues to please move the slides. So this is how the webinar is laid out for today. After the initial context setting, we would have our 4 panelists joining us from different cities, Kochi, Surat, Rajkot, and Delhi, telling us what they are doing differently. The conversation is going to be facilitated by Mr. Vivek. I would introduce all of the panelists and the facilitator as we move ahead. In the end, we have kept 10 minutes for question answers, but if there are more questions, we'd be happy to extend the conversation with a little bit more flexibility time. Next. These are a few of the housekeeping rules. All of the panelists, we would request you to please keep your videos on. Participants request you to stay muted. If you have any questions in the question answer session, please raise your hand. During the session, you can put in your questions in the Q&A chat function, and we will note it down and put it up for conversation as we move ahead. We are going to be recording this session, and if any of you want a copy of that, we'd be happy to share with you. The language that we are using is primarily English, but we would be very happy to use a little bit of Hindi just to have a comfortable conversation as we talk about what's happening on ground. And you can reach us at ICLEI. We'd be happy to come back to you with any questions or any suggestions you might have about how you found this conversation. Next, please. So a little bit about us. We are ICLEI, Local Governments for Sustainability. We are a global association of cities and regions. More than 2,500 of these administrations form part of ICLEI. And as ICLEI, we're working in India for now more than 15 years, working with cities, trying to see how we can facilitate on-ground action of cities in line with what the national ambitions are. And electrification happens to be, electrification of transport happens to be one of them. Next, please. So this all of us know, but just to remind us that in terms of the regulatory ecosystem, we have in place a number of national targets set. Large number of states have an EV policy in place, and the remaining states have a draft that they are discussing. So this is what we all know. We are noticing on ground a good amount of consumer confidence for electrification. We are seeing numbers of sales of two-wheeler EVs rise really fast. Even in three-wheeler segment, we are seeing this happen really good, and everybody can see how a large percentage of them are e-rickshaws currently, which is changing to e-autos as the consumer confidence is moving. In the cities that we are working, we are seeing public transport electrification going on very fast, and individual owners are also looking at electrification, supported by the mechanisms that are being put in place through states and through the national government. In terms of the targets that we have set for ourselves, so we are talking about 25 to 30% electrification in the range of 22 to 2030 duration. But already we are seeing close to around 7% penetration, which is mainly in Delhi, and Mr. Mohan probably will tell us a little bit more about that. And other cities, other geographies not far behind. We have evidence that charging infrastructure is fastly picking up, and it is spread across the country. In terms of readiness of the subgrid to handle peak hour power demand, this is a conversation still needing a little bit of unpacking, a little bit of more clarity as to how this needs to move ahead. Initial discussions are happening, but we would like to see how this gets implemented on ground and supports adoption. On the EV supply chain, there is still dependence for supply from international markets, and the resilience of the supply chain is something that the national government is focusing on very actively, and we are hoping that we start to see this to happen as we move ahead. Next, please. So a number of things that are in place and working very good in the favor of EV adoption are mainly coming at the national level and through the state government efforts. And we are seeing all of this on ground. We are seeing targets set. We are seeing incentives being in place. We are seeing subsidies being offered. There are state level nodal departments, steering committees, cells in place, and also thinking about skill development and research and development. What we are finding is something that requires additional focus, that requires support on ground, is the role and involvement of local administration to actually get things to happen on ground at a much faster, accelerated pace than it is being seen right now. And so for that, I think we need to see how cities look beyond the targets that the state policies are saying, because we are going to see most of this action happening at the state level, at the city level, long-term sustainability, long-term action planning. What are we doing? How are we doing? Different stakeholders that we want to talk to, how are we engaging with them? And then charging infrastructure, electricity supply, load provisions, and all of this. How do we support this on ground is something that we want to look at. Moving ahead. Next slide, please. These are a number of avenues that city administrations can use to mainstream EV adoption. I will not go on each of the points one by one. We know about it. That's why we are here in this conversation. But just to highlight that these are actions that require city support, city actors support to go ahead. Next, please. So we did one initiative recently, and based on that support from Shakti Sustainable Energy Foundation, we studied, mapped, and understood what's happening on ground across 10 cities of varied typologies, what they are doing for electrification, how are things happening, what are additional supports needed. And this work, this engagement across different cities made us confident and sure that additional support, additional action, planning for electric mobility adoption is something that requires additional push and additional support going further. Next, please. I'm mindful of time and I'm trying to go a little bit fast so we can come to the panelists. It's just that we have a number of reports that come out of this discussion, and we'll be sharing these reports with everybody who's joining us and making them public. In case you have any suggestions and feedback, we'd be happy to take it further. The synthesis report includes our findings and recommendations from all of the cities that we spoke with. We developed action plans for EV adoption for the cities of Kochi, Rajkot, and Surat. And we also made recommendations for EV charging provision for development control regulations in the city of Rajkot and Surat. We looked at financial strategy for municipal fleet electrification for the cities of Rajkot and Kochi. And the series, the next coming up webinars, will be focusing on GDCRs and municipal fleet electrification as we move ahead from today's conversation. Next, please. So this is what we are saying. We are seeing majority cities are taking aggressive actions or implementing projects that support electrification. But what we feel is required is an approach that is more long-term, which looks at a cycle of actions beginning with strategizing, deliberating with various actors to agree on the long-term goals, collaborate and engage with any and every actor who could help you reach these goals that you set for yourself, act, which is what is already happening, but consistently under a plan, under a strategy to see the change, evaluate how your projects are working so that you are aware of weaknesses, gaps, and additional strengthening requirement, and use that to accelerate your action moving ahead. So this is what we are telling the cities they need to do in terms of aggressively moving ahead with electrification of transport, trying to see how electrification supports the sustainable mobility idea that we are all thinking about and we would want cities to have and achieve over a period of time. Next, please. So enough of the background, and I'd like to now introduce the panelists that we have for the conversation. We have Dr. Rajan Jagambal, who is representing the city of Kochi. He's from the Center for Environment and Heritage. He's been involved in Kochi city for more than a decade, working actively at KMC, focusing on climate responsiveness, greening of the city, and actions such as electrification. Another panelist that we have with us today is Mr. M.N. Chaudhary. Mr. Chaudhary is representing Surat Municipal Corporation. He comes from the core group that is thoughtfully and very aggressively supporting the city's EV adoption ambition, be it just the EV policy or bus electrification or charging and financing, and interacting with a number of stakeholders to take further these discussions. On the panel with us is also Mr. Jasmine Bhai Rathore, who is representing RRL, Rajkot Limited, and the Rajkot Municipal Corporation. He's been an important part of the e-bus efforts at Rajkot, and also provides technical inputs for the city's transport electrification plans. The last panelist that we have is Mr. N. Mohan. A whole lot of us who are looking at electric mobility know of him. He leads the Delhi's EV cell and is instrumental in technically providing inputs and operationalizing the various initiatives the Delhi government is taking for EV adoption at the city level, at the state level, at the Delhi NCT. Bringing the conversation together is Mr. Vivek Chandran, who's Director, Shakti Sustainable Energy Foundation. He leads the Climate Insights team at Shakti. He's been part of a number of city-level discussions and happens to be one of a few sustainable transport enthusiasts that we look up to and look forward to talking about sustainable transport in cities. So without any further delay, I would ask my colleagues to take away the slides and hand it over to Vivek to lead the discussion. I would ask Vivek if it was possible to probably give a chance to Mr. Jasmine Bhai Rathore from Rajkot to speak earlier. He probably has other engagements that he would want to be focusing on as well, but it's up to you to take the conversations further, and over to you.
Thanks, Ashish. I will try and prioritize Mr. Jasmine. Maybe there are 2 rounds of questions that I intend to take, so maybe I'll come to you first, sir. So just before starting, I thought I'll just set a little bit of context. I think Ashish, you've done a fabulous job of looking at it from a thorough point of view of all the aspects that cities and states are trying to, the way they are trying to push the electric mobility transition. It's a very important topic for us, including if you look at the current context. There was an announcement, at least a policy suggestion from the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, that we might want to transition away from diesel engine vehicles, at least 4-wheelers, by 2027. And the target was set on million+ cities. So again, the urgency with which cities need to act is far, far more, perhaps, than the rest of India, right? So cities will definitely lead the way in this transition. So in that, with that point, I just wanted to also set a little bit of the context on how we will go through the format. So like I said, we want to go through 2 rounds of questions. In the first one, I'm hoping that we can set, all of the panelists can set context as to what is important in their cities and what are their important challenges that they want to overcome. And the second round, we'll hopefully go into the need for an action plan and some of the nuances of that. So we have 40 minutes, maybe a little less for the discussion. So I will not take more time. Ashish, you want to come in?
So just wanted to say that Rajkot just messaged they would want to go last on the panel, and you could go ahead with the other panels. I'm sorry.
Right. That's perfect. Thank you. All right. So yes, we have 40 minutes. Ashish, just checking in. Do we still have 40 minutes, or should I? 40 minutes. That's good.
I think let's target 40 minutes and 40 go ahead.
Minutes, right? So that's 10 minutes in total for each panelist. So it's not a lot of time. Let's see if we can keep our interventions into 3 to 4 minutes so that we can come back for a second round and maybe take more questions towards the end. So let's kick it off. Let's not wait any further. So I think the first round of questions, I will perhaps start with Dr. Rajan to frame things out. But I think the question is going to be the same for everyone else as well. So what I wanted to talk about is, one, the context is that, look, central government has FAME subsidy. There is an incentive very clearly. States have added to it as well. Through their own incentive schemes and targets that some of the states have set. But does the city have a role to play which is unique, that is not being played by the state and the center? What is that? That is what we would like to learn through this session. And please, from all this panelists, please do contribute from whatever the cities are doing, whatever your cities are doing. The second question that I want to raise is, what targets do your cities have? And did you feel what compelled you to perhaps set those targets? So that would be an insight that our audience would like to also understand. And please feel free to highlight any of the strategies and how they're being adopted in your cities while you make your intervention. So first to Rajan sir, and then I'll go to the other panelists.
Good morning, Vivek and Ashish, and there are like some technical issues, so I joined from Surat's laptop. So anyway, it's very interesting, like the whole discussion about the EV vehicle, and Kerala is a state where we have a draft electric policy prepared in 2019, and as per that policy, there are kind of quite a lot of targets, but then we are little short, but trying to meet all. As far as Kochi is concerned, like we have a lot of e-mobility action plan and initiatives, and I think I would rather brief about that initiative over here. And we have passed a resolution. First of all, we have passed a resolution to procure only electric vehicle from this kind of financial year. That all that vehicles we would be buying, the municipal corporation would be buying, would be e-vehicles. That's a big policy kind of thrust on electrification, and we are adhering to it. Like so far, we have bought only like electrical vehicles, and then we have plan funds. We have programs under plan funds, and now we are providing subsidies for buying three-wheelers. We have around 7,000 auto rickshaws, tuk-tuks within the city, and we are giving subsidy to convert that fleet. In another 5 years, we want to convert half of it into electric mode, and we are giving subsidy to now initially to around 70 to 80 people, and that some of them have already bought their vehicles, and by another another month or two, like we will have all the vehicles on a road. And we have also kind of implemented some demonstration projects, like for three-wheelers. First of all, like with the support of ICLEI, we had maybe one of the first cities in India to kind of go cargo vehicles. Like we had introduced 21 goods vehicles in the city, and all of them are doing really well. And many of them like bought more and more cargo vehicles using this is a great and huge success. And on 15th, we are giving 3 more vehicles to the Hunger-Free Kochi project. Like we are giving it to the women self-help group, and they would be using this goods vehicle. And and other than that, like we had another project, like partially funded by the UN Habitat GIZ, and with the support of like the Auto Rickshaw Cooperative Society in Kochi, we had launched a 100 e-auto project. Like it's already on the road, and now a lot of people prefer e-autos because they are like people friendly, like in our kind of roads and terrain, and it's becoming a big success over here. And now, like with the support of ICLEI, we are considering the electrification of entire municipal fleet, and understanding and we are working on to understand the financial feasibility of the same. And detailed studies on to achieve the transition of municipal fleet to electric by providing a kind of year-wise phase-out plan and plan. That's already on, and ICLEI is really supporting us with that project. And an estimate year-wise financial plan to achieve this fleet conversion for next 10 years. That's like the municipal corporation has taken it up very seriously, and the phase manner, like the project is in the almost in the final stage, and we would be following that. We'll be using it as a rule book in our kind of conversion route. And then, like, we have initiated a lot of kind of charging stations. Charging stations are very important, and we have like a lot of city led charging stations, and there are many other, as well as like there is this Kerala State Electricity Board, like there's charging stations, and a lot of private people kind of coming up with charging stations. So charging stations and poles, like it's all it's available almost everywhere. It's there is no need of anxiety or panic, like to in search of kind of charging stations. And like KMRL, the Kochi Metro, they are like going to introduce like their 300 or 400 e-auto rickshaws in their metro stations for the last mile connectivity, connecting the metro station and the important urban centers, business centers, and that will be in place very soon. And the stakeholders, we are coordinating with all kind of stakeholders. We are supporting the private players. We are like supporting the other institutions who are like going for kind of electric vehicle conversion. And cities like giving a lot of training for auto rickshaw drivers, and on top of all these, like we have a bus run by electric bus run by the Kochi Metro Rail Limited, connecting airport to some other locations, important locations. So a lot of, and more than all these, like there are a lot of private players, a lot of individuals buying electric vehicles, and you can see. I don't know, I'm not very sure what is the percentage, but I feel, Kiran, it's almost around 10 to 15%. That's quite an achievement, in the sense, like if you really move around in the city, you would see like after every 3 or 4 vehicles, one electric vehicle, whether it is an auto or a car or whatever. So
Sorry to interrupt.
happening over here.
Hoping you can wrap up.
Yeah, sure. It's done, like
Thank you so much, sir. Sorry, Ashish wants to come in. Yes, go ahead, Ashish.
I'd ask you to take up Rajkot next. I think he just
All right.
mentioned he'd be happy to pick up.
Sure. So yes, I'll invite Mr. Rathod from Rajkot to please.
Yes.
Same
Yes.
set of questions, sir.
Yes, good morning to panelists. I'm Jasmine Rathod, representing Rajkot Municipal Corporation. We had a lot of initiative and development going on as far as electric vehicle readiness of the city is concerned. In 2019, we have planned to replace the existing fleet of buses. We have 100 fleet of buses for city transportation, and we have gone for phase 1 of 50 electric vehicles to be replaced from existing diesel buses. And I'm happy to share that we had successfully completed that project, and we have 50 electric buses flying across the city since last 1 year. In phase 2, we have planned 100 electric buses. That project is right now in a developmental stage. We have developed and given approval to the prototype electric bus, and we have charging infrastructure being constructed at the smart city area. As far as the other elements are concerned, we are planning to develop electric charging stations at 6 various locations of the city, and we have almost finalized the sites and tendering process to invite the parties to develop that charging infrastructure. As far as the last mile connectivity is concerned, we are in process of developing a strategies to participate, to invite the self-help groups to participate and provide last mile connectivity to our BRT stations, and various developed interest, in principle talk with us to provide the support. Apart from that, We have also at Pan City, we are planning to develop the new development of EV ready building. We are planning for policy initiative to have a total connected load of additional 20% to future readiness of the electric buildings. And apart from that, we are also getting help from state government. They are providing 25 rupees subsidy for per kilometer for flying the electric vehicles, and total cost of the vehicle that are in the phase 1 is 53.91 rupees per kilometer. So around 45% incentives are given by the state government. Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rathod. Thanks for staying on time as well. I will, sorry for that. I will next go to Mr. Mohan to give us a sense of what Delhi government is doing. And I would come to you, Mr. Chaudhary, last on the same question.
Sure.
Mr. Mohan, over to you first.
Yeah. So thank you, Vivek. Thank you, ICLEI, for this opportunity. It's a pleasure to be part of this webinar discussion. So Delhi, like under the Delhi electric vehicle policy, which was notified in 2020 of August, we set a cumulative target of achieving 25% EV registration by 2024. It's an overall cumulative target which was set by Delhi itself. And some of the key policy measures which are driving this transition are more with respect to the incentive framework, which has been structured. Primarily, we're issuing incentive in under the Delhi EV policy for vehicle segments like 2-wheelers, 3-wheelers, and 4-wheelers, which is more in addition to or supplementing the FAME 2 incentive policy. We're also like providing the scrapping incentives, like where the customers can discard their old IC vehicle, and while acquiring the electric vehicle, they can claim this scrapping incentive too. And this is available for like 2-wheelers, 3-wheelers, and even the cargo segments too. Delhi, under the policy framework, we're also providing the interest subvention provision of up to 5%, wherein the customers can claim the 5% interest subvention under the policy framework. So these are some of the policy key highlights. But if you look at our overall performance with respect to EV penetration, lastly, I think we're somewhere close around 12% is our EV registration of year 2023, considering the last 4 months of duration, starting from Jan to April. And if you look at the previous year achievement, it's close around 10%. So we have seen like two major factors here. One, in the 2-wheeler segments, we are touching close around 10%. But when it comes to 3-wheeler cargo segment, we are touching close to 65%. And in the motor cab, it's around 45%. We see these two segments are catching up very fast. And primarily, I think this is driven by the demand from the e-commerce entities. And we see now most of these delivery service providers and aggregators are transitioning their fleet to electric. So we see this segment is like catching up very fast as compared to other vehicle segment. Delhi, under the provisions of electric vehicle policy, we have structured or we have an institution framework called Delhi Electric Vehicle Cell, which is primarily responsible for coordinating, monitoring, and overseeing the implementation of the policy measures. It's more like a single point of agency, which will coordinate with multiple departments, OEMs, charge point operators, distribution company. So at any point in time, any of the stakeholders can contact the EV cell for getting any kind of information related to electric mobility and charging infrastructure. In public transportation, we are taking a big step. So presently, the 4% of our public transport fleet are electric, which means like around 300 electric buses are operational presently in Delhi. And now we have planned to induct close to 6,000 electric buses, which means by next 4 years of time, we'll be inducting close to 8,000 electric buses, which will saturate 80% of public transport to electric. We're also like trying to like augment some of the last mile connectivity measures. In collaboration with Delhi Metro Rail Corporation, we started a scheme called last mile connectivity services through electric autos, where Transport Department is issuing an electric auto permits to Delhi Metro Rail Corporation, which are in turn like through an aggregator concept are operating these e-autos for last mile services. Initially, the pilot was done in Dwarka subcity with around 136 e-autos, which are primarily with the swappable battery solution. So here also like 33% of these permits are reserved for women drivers. We are trying to ensure there is an inclusion and the livelihood opportunities are being given to the women drivers and also some of the underprivileged communities. This has gained a larger traction. Now we want to upscale this further. Now we are adding up more e-autos for last mile services. If you look at some of the upcoming metro stations or existing metro station, we want to ensure like the people have a means to at least like access some of the public transport, be it metro and bus depots. So we want to ensure there's a shift from the private use base to the public use base. As a step towards electrification of government fleet, Delhi EVSL has done the aggregation of around 225 electric cars from 47 departments. The first phase has been completed, and so far we're able to induct around 117 electric vehicles. So soon we are going to at least like mandate or issue a kind of directive to all the government department to switch from their IC vehicles to electric vehicle. So these are some of the policy measures which have taken. And adding to that, when we talk about the EV adoption, there's a larger dependency on the charging infrastructure also. So Delhi presently has around close to 4,000 EV charging points, of which around 2,300 are slow charging points and around 395 are the fast charging points. So we're also putting up the battery swapping stations too, and presently we have close to 256 battery swapping stations. So we're also in charging infrastructure, we work on multiple business model. One is the public-private partnership model, where we try to work with the public entities, and they will have a land partnership with the land-owning entities, primarily the urban local bodies, development authorities, and the distribution companies. Also, we try to work on an aggregated concept for EV charging stations, where we did the aggregation of land parcel, and we selected the concessionaire to an process. And the third is we're also promoting the private charging points too, because unlike other cities where the land parcels are large, Delhi has a limited land space. We also understand the importance of having the private charging points in addition to the public charging points. We're also promoting the public charging points, wherein under the policy framework, we're providing incentive up to 6,000 rupees per charging point. So this way, we're trying to see there's an ecosystem which has been developed across the Delhi NCT, and this year 2023 will be completing 3 years of the policy period. Soon we'll be coming out with more reforms in the policy framework to ensure this transition of 25% by 2024 could be achieved.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you. Very interesting case indeed, because we saw a vast range of policies being attempted there or strategies being attempted there. I'd like to go next to the city of Surat, which perhaps is one of the first cities that I know of that has attempted an EV policy for itself. And so again, another unique case in this. So Mr. Chaudhary, over to you, sir, to share your experience.
Good morning to all. Myself, Mr. Chaudhary, Executive Engineer and looking after BRTS Department of Surat Municipal Corporation. Particularly, I am looking after EV adoption in our public transportation service. Surat Municipal Corporation has its own city link department, which is operating city bus service for public transportation. We are trying for maximum participation of the electric buses in these contracts of city bus service. First of all things, let me express my thanks to ICLEI for giving us opportunity to participate in this webinar and interact with all the major stakeholders in India. Am I audible to all? Okay.
You're audible, sir.
Pardon?
You're perfectly audible, sir. You can go ahead.
Okay, sir. Thank you. As Ashish ji mentioned, and as a SMC, almost we know all states and has launched their EV policy. But as far as city level is concerned, Surat Municipal Corporation has launched its own electric EV policy in year 2021. That was the major step we have taken with the aim to develop public-private EV charging infrastructure with the help of citizens, involving the citizens of the Surat, promoting adoption of electric vehicles by citizens, as well as in municipal services also, which include public transportation for solid waste collection and solid waste disposal vehicles. Also, we are converting them into electric vehicles. Then after creating databases, almost all we know there remains always the lack of the database of how much vehicles are there. But we are preparing databases for our city level, how much EVs are introduced in the city level. Then IC activity plays major role in adoption of the EVs. In Surat, we have some experience when we launch solar policy. Even almost 10 years back, we launched solar policy. And at that time, the response was very poor. But after IEC activity, the response was so fast that almost if you come to Surat and see that most of the roofs are with solar plants. So we have some experience, very good experience for IEC activity, how much the IEC activity plays role in adoption of any good thing. So we are conducting seminars and all that for promoting EV promotion. So now coming to the infrastructure support, as a Surat Municipal Corporation, already we have installed 25 public charging stations for car charging. They are already operational since 3-4 months. And again, then remaining 25s will be made operational within a short period. They are almost in the final stage and launch in almost 2 to 3 weeks, they will be operational. Then as far as public citizens are concerned, they are promoted to participate and install charging stations on their own. For that purpose, we are providing some incentives for that, like rented place, land for installation of charging stations. So promote EV charging infrastructure, public is also motivated for that. Then for citizens participation for procuring EVs, there are some rebates in as a municipal corporation. We charge some environmental improvement charges in direct tax bills. So we are providing rebate in environmental improvement charges. Who procures the 100% improvement environment improvement charges to private EV charging stations. So that is the one thing we are doing. Then promote EVs in mobility in city, as I have told, public charging stations, and apart from that IC activities. So in March 2022, there were almost 7,000 EVs in Surat city operational on road. Within a year, that has their figure has reached to 32,000. That is the impact of these activities we are doing. Then second thing is that incentives to public, which include vehicle tax exemption. As a municipal corporation, we charge some vehicle tax who procure their vehicles. But who purchases EV, we provide vehicle tax exemption in their bills. Then as far as city public transportation is concerned, which is looked directly by Surat Municipal Corporation, we have already 200 buses operational in city bus service. Electric buses, those are working on road. And next in coming year, before April 2024, almost 600 buses will be running with electrified in the before April 2024. So already
Can I request you to wrap up, please?
Okay. Then official vehicles for use of the officers. Already we have 5 Tata Nexon EVs which are for use for officers. Then, as already I have told earlier, for SMC for solid waste collection, we are almost more than 100 vehicles are converted into electric vehicles. Converted in the sense they are replaced with, not converted at presently, not the running vehicles are converted, and there is not possibility, but they are replaced with the electric vehicles. Then there is a pink auto concept in Surat city, where auto rickshaws are operated by women's. They are called pink autos. Those pink autos are we are providing some incentives for purchasing pink auto, apart from other facilities and other incentives. 5,000 rupees are provided separate above and over other facilities to pink auto, if anybody wants to purchase pink auto. Then database preparation I have already talked about. Then there is one builder association, CREDA, in Surat Municipal Corporation. Another major stakeholder is Southern Gujarat Chamber of Commerce. We are with active dialogue with those institutes, how the EV charging infrastructure can be promoted in private buildings and other places, important places. For that purpose, in coming time, we will be organizing some seminars. Apart from that, the new thing we have done in the last week is we have signed MOU with GIZ and MHI for capacity building and safe transition from conventional vehicles to EVs. That's all about Surat Municipal Corporation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chaudhary. Again, seems like there's a slightly different approach maybe in Surat, because there's also a lot of engagement with the stakeholders, almost one-on-one through webinars and hands-on interactions. So that's very nice to see. So I think to wrap up to an extent what I heard from the last segment or last set of questions and the answers that the cities gave was, there is certainly several actions to be taken. Again, public charging is one problem, but also charging within buildings, residential buildings separately, commercial buildings, the stakeholders are very different. Grid readiness, of course, DISCOMs is another concern that has to be dealt with. Commercial vehicles are penetrating at a different rate, and therefore support might be slightly different. That's required. Public transport well within the control of cities, and maybe the ambition and certainty could be slightly different, right? And private vehicle electrification, of course, perhaps the most complicated, and along with commercial vehicles. So the set of stakeholders, you also mentioned several set, including industry organizations that need to be brought on board to help this transition through. So what I want to focus on in the next phase is considering the large set of targets, which are, I mean, electrification is the big objective, but within it, each segment needs to move differently and needs to be acted upon differently with different stakeholders. What, therefore, do you see? Do you see the role for an electric mobility action plan, firstly, at a city level? And do you see that what kind of utility may it provide to you in order to get further on your strategies and targets? Secondly, what may be the considerations if you are thinking about a strategy of this kind of an electric mobility action plan? What kind of considerations would you have while building one of these? And even if you, let's say you don't have an action plan, you could even highlight for the audience how, sorry, if you have an action plan, do highlight for the audience how it's working for you. Because maybe Delhi has perhaps a slightly more substantial, kind of targets and actions that are put forth. Even Surat has kind of mentioned that. So it'll be good to understand these three aspects. So because Rajkot would need to go, the gentleman from Rajkot needs to leave earlier, I'll go to Rajkot first. Mr. Rathod, if you could respond.
Hello. Jasmine sir has to be seriously called by Commissioner sir, but I'll be speaking on his behalf regarding the actions of the cities. we are taking help of the stakeholders to dwell deep into the city. Like earlier mentioned by Rathod sir, that we are also taking help of the self-help groups to reach out to the people to increase the plan of the last mile connectivity. City is implementing one another project named Capacities with the help of ICLEI only, where we will be aiming to increase the share of e-auto along the BRTS route. And there we will taking the help of self-help groups to reach out to the people who are in a need to buy the electric autos, whom the subsidy will be also provided under this project. So this is the way we are aiming to increase the last mile connectivity in the city.
Thank you. I'm sorry I didn't get your name, but thanks a lot for the intervention. I will go next to Mr. Chaudhary, perhaps. Sir, the question for you is, again, do you see the need for a electric mobility action plan in your city in order to bring the several strategies together? And what may be the considerations for such an action plan?
Sir, in Surat, comprehensive electric mobility plan is under preparation, and within a few months it will be launched. That is the main thing we are doing. As far as last mile connectivity is concerned, we have already public bicycle sharing system, PBS, where conventional cycles are used for cycling, for both the purpose, for traveling as well for some leisure time or exercise purpose also. So in the augmentation of this PBS system, we will be go in the next stage, we will go for e-bikes. That is the main step we will be taking for last mile connectivity as well as for promoting health concept also. Then second thing is that one thing remained while mentioning the various steps we have taken. There is Credit Society, Surat Municipal Corporation Employees Credit Society for the welfare of the employees of Surat Municipal Corporation. They provide some subsidized loans for purchase of electric vehicles. We have dialogue with Credit Society and with EV manufacturers, and brought them together. So they will provide vehicles with some special discounts. And on the other way, SMC's Credit Society will provide some subsidized rates loans for the employees. And with the help of that, almost 20,000, there are 20,000 employees in Surat Municipal Corporation, and they have their own vehicles, at least two-wheelers, and some have four-wheelers. So with the help of subsidized loan and with special discounts for EV vehicles by manufacturers, there is great possibility of transition from conventional vehicle, two-wheelers and four-wheelers to EVs by the employees also. That is also, that will also play a major role in transition by institute level employees. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chaudhary. Next, I'll go to Dr. Rajan from Kochi. Sir, same question. What do you see is the need for an action plan at the city level? As well as if there's any considerations that you would like to go into it.
Yeah, Vivek, like for Kochi, the e-vehicle is like very important. Converting into e-mobility is very important in the context of climate change. And for us, construction and transportation, these are the two biggest cause for GHG emissions. And it's very important that we go into a sustainable mode, and e-vehicle policy is very important in that, because until and unless you have a policy and guidelines and directive, things don't work that fast. So it's very important, but we really don't know whether the local government has that power to, because it's under the transport policy, it's the state, and the national, more of national policy is prepared in a national level, and state transport policy is also there. But like whether the local government has the power to prepare its own transport policy and vehicle policy. But it's very important, and I think like if there are no powers, and the city should be given power to prepare. It's not just ease the transportation or make it more people friendly, but to fight the climate change impact. Kochi is a city that's facing serious threat as far as climate change is concerned. We have a short duration, high intensity kind of rainfall, heat islands is being formed. We face everything. Like we are a coastal city, and we are facing sea level rise, and a local action is needed in all sector, especially on construction and transportation. So we are exploring all avenues, and that's why like we have sought the help of ICLEI to kind of prepare this action plan to phase out or like converting all our fleet into a electric vehicle. But I still doubt whether it's there is this concerted effort, like by the state, city, and private individuals and institutions together to achieve that. But like we may have to really work further on that. Yeah. Vivek.
Thank you, Dr. Rajan. Interesting points. I'll probably, if we get the time, I will come back to you on a few of the points that you made. Next, over to Mr. Mohan. Sir, same question to you. Is there an action plan in Delhi, e-mobility action plan, and what have been the considerations that have gone into it?
Yeah, so Delhi, we have made an action plan for charging and swapping infrastructure. It's a 3 years multi-year action plan. So where we intend to put up around close to 18,000 EV charging points. This 18,000 is proportional to the vehicle sale projections, which we expect in Delhi by 2025. It's more aligned to the vehicle segment also. But since the battery technology is evolving fast, we made it common action plan for both charging and swapping infrastructure. Now, further, we are also trying to build up a district level implementation plan, because now when overarching 18,000 is the target for the Delhi. Now we are working on a district level implementation plan. So wherein we have constituted a committee under the chairmanship of district magistrate, where district magistrate would be like overseeing the implementation of this, the charging infrastructure. We're also like onboarding some of the charge point operators, specifically the public entities who are involved in building up the charging stations. And the district magistrate will be responsible for facilitating the transaction between the land partners and the CPO. So this way we're trying to see there is an equal penetration or a kind of an deployment across all the districts. So Delhi has 11 districts, and the NDMCH, like New Delhi Municipal Council, is a separate area itself. So unlike if you look at the previous 2 years back, it was more a demand-driven installation. We found like the most of the charging points are concentrated in a particular area or a particular district. Now we want to have a more widespread deployment of the charging stations, and this type of district level implementation plan makes more sense, where we can ensure the charging stations and swapping stations are deployed across the entire districts. So adding to that, we're also, since we're deploying the last mile connectivity with e-autos, we're also like building up the required slow charging points and battery swapping stations along the periphery of the metro stations and some of the residential locations too. So where these vehicles can get the quick recharging, or else they can go for a battery swapping solutions too. In the next phase of the last mile connectivity, we're also trying to come out with other modes of vehicles, like electric cycles, the high-speed scooters, and the low-speed scooters, for which we're doing an evaluation like how this could be deployed. So this last mile would be like more augmented with all type of electric vehicles. So customers can choose their required mode of transit, electric transit system to commute to nearest like metro and the public transport. So we have some basic steps has been taken. Now the more focus is towards like implementing these policy measures. That's the key role where Delhi Whistle has taken up now to ensure these policy and action plans are implemented within a time-bound manner.
Thank you, Mr. Mohan. We are on time. We have used up the 40 minutes. Ashish, could I go for a second round of questions, or should I just go into the Q&A?
If you have some interesting questions that you would want to follow up with, I think you could start with them, and then we could immediately pick up the Q&A ones.
So I think Delhi and Mr. Mohan's role there is to an extent at the state level, and perhaps the rest of the panelists have a slightly different role because their role is at the city level. And Dr. Rajan did state that there is a problem of bringing all these stakeholders together because they are of different levels. One is at the city level, one is at the state level. Now, I guess what has worked in Delhi may not therefore work in a Kochi. So I think that's what Mr. Rajan was trying to hint at. There's two levels of government at work here, and they have different set of targets, different set of incentives with which they work. So Dr. Rajan, would you want to expound that a little bit in a sense that can perhaps an action plan, where should it be located? Should it be at the state level? Should it be at the city level? Is there a, how can this problem be, let's say, resolved amicably, right? Because actions need to be taken, people need to know what their responsibilities are. So how do you see this going forward?
Yeah, well, there is a solution. There was a problem, but there is a solution now. Fortunately, there is this KMTA is being formed, like in a Kochi Metropolitan Transport Authority. But I don't know whether I can say that in this forum, but they are not given that much of power to kind of formulate policies on transport, e-mobility, and things like that. But if the government gives that much of power, because a city like Kochi, which actually is the economic nerve center, and it has to restructure itself a lot in the transport sector. I think like it's very important that like city is given a lot of power, not just the municipal corporation. Municipal corporation doesn't like own buses, or like it's the Kerala State Transport Department, and it doesn't really much of a say over the transport system and transport scenario. But like an institution like KMTA would really work in this regard. I think it is very important that like state government gives more power to the KMTA so that they can formulate all these policies on behalf of the cities, not just the central business. Kochi, the municipal corporation is almost like less than 100 square kilometer area. But larger urban agglomeration is almost 200 square kilometer area. I think all these policies should address to this 200 square kilometer area, because that's a catchment area as far as business and all other transactions are concerned. So that's what I want to say. Yeah, Vivek.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rajan. I have just one additional question, and perhaps then we'll go into Q&A. And anybody could take this question depending on the applicability in your city. So there is a second level at which there is a need for the electric mobility transition. One is, of course, for the climate, but the other, the air quality challenge, right? And all of our cities, most of them have clean air action plans. They're non-compliant to the standards that have been set for us. Of course, movement in that direction has not been fast enough, and therefore 2 more years that have been added to the targets, perhaps with a 10% addition as well. So now 40% by 2026 improvement of PM is what is being required by our cities. Is any of your city action plans or the targets being set for your cities informed by air quality targets as well? Because electrification could be one of the most immediate and easier ways to reach these targets, right? And transport is easily 30 to 40% of most cities' air quality, PM emissions. So how do you see air quality and the EV transition working hand in hand? And a tight target, 2026 is quite a tight target. So how do you see that working as well? So open to anybody who might be working on this or thinking about it.
Sir, in Surat Municipal Corporation, for our public transportation service, as per conventional, diesel buses are phasing out by December 225. And now we are only going for electric buses, no diesel buses furthermore. So as I have already said, before end of April 2024, 600 buses will be introduced in this system. And by end of 2025, almost all the buses will be electrified. So that is the main thing for public transportation in Surat.
Yeah, Vivek, actually, like in one of the recent studies on respiratory diseases like it's found out that the respiratory diseases in Kochi is on an increase, like, it's increasing fast. So it's very important in relation with the electric mobility is very much in, what do I say, like it's very important in terms of your physical health, especially respiratory health. So, and so far we believe that we had very good and we had recent like fire at our dump site, and that really led to a lot of introspection, and it led to a realization that, like, we really have to start working on our air quality. And as I said, like in a construction, the second thing is transportation. It's if you are to have good air quality, then you'll have to have like a cleaner mobility. And I think that realization is there for the policymakers, majority of the stakeholders. And what we really need is an action, a joint action by all these. I think, I'm sure that will happen. And we have a lot of projects like Clean Air Asia is there. ICLEI is doing some project like GIZ is helping us with our air quality monitoring and things like that. So it's very important. Yes.
Vic, just to add to what Dr. Rajan said. So we are trying to work in multiple vehicle segment, be it two-wheelers, be it three-wheelers, and even the four-wheelers, and the public transportation. And if you look at the sub-national EV policy, I think Delhi is the only state which is providing subsidy for the electric cycles, both passenger and the cargo segment. But now, if you look at most of the national and the state EV policies, the one of the missing segment is the truck. So far, I think none of the EV policies talk about the truck segment. So Delhi, we are trying to see like how this segment could be, this could be at least like included in the policy framework, because Delhi, like we have more number of trucks entering Delhi NCT area for regularly. It's like more than like 60 to 70,000 trucks enters daily on a regular basis, and it's caused like a lot of vehicular pollutions. We are doing a small study on this along with a funding ICCT, just to understand like a specific application, because like we want to see like which is the like champion applications which could be taken up for electrifying in our truck segment. So here we're trying to analyze like multiple use cases with municipalities of Delhi, with Jal Board, to see like what's their regular usage of these ICE trucks, and what's the possibility for having in switching to the electric trucks. We're trying to have a more simulation study also, wherein at least we try to analyze their load requirement, the travel requirements, travel trends, the usage, and all those things would be captured. And maybe like perhaps the next question of the EV policy, we want to include this segment, which is presently missing in most of the sub-national EV policies. So once, I think it's really important to have a more comprehensive framework covering all the vehicle segment if you want to tackle this air pollution. Since like there is more demand on a particular vehicle segment, I think now the focus has to shift towards like some of the larger emitting pollution emitting vehicles too.
Thank you very much. Thank you for those interventions. I think it's very useful to understand how we're thinking of integrating it. There are about 3 questions in the chat box, so maybe I will try and pull them up. The first question was on locating charging infrastructure. And the question was about how, is there any guidance on location? Because it could otherwise cause congestion on streets, etc. So anybody has adopted any guidance on charging infrastructure location in your cities?
So maybe like I can share the Delhi experience. So Delhi, we're trying to use a geospatial tool where we try to see like where is a clear demand for putting up an EV charging station. And also we maintain a centralized database of all the locations. So whenever these locations are being opted for the EV charging providers, we at least like ensure like they're putting up a combination of chargers which can cater to different vehicle segment, 2-wheelers, 3-wheelers, and the 4-wheelers. And this would be a combination of both fast charging stations and slow charging stations, and along with the battery swapping stations too. So in this way, we try to see like this infra shared across the different vehicle segment. Instead of like only focusing on a particular vehicle segment, we can put up a charging infrastructure which can be used by multiple EV variants. That is one thing. So since like we work with, since we have the database of all the EV segments, we try to see like which are the potential areas to put up in maybe like the slow charging points for two-wheelers and the e-rickshaw segment. Maybe some of the potential areas for the fast charging stations where we see larger aggregations or segregation of the vehicle segment. This is one thing. Secondly, we also try to see like how we can look at some of the points of public interest, because presently the utilization level of the EV charging stations are low, and so need to like do a more scientific analysis to identify the right location, the right type of charging station. To some extent, we are trying to adopt the scientific approach of having these more in two level of study. One is secondary research, and the first is the primary research, where we do a physical survey also. We do a lot of handholding to the charge point operators by providing this vital information on selecting the right locations and right type of chargers.
Excellent. I think I hope that question has been answered. I think the next question, and perhaps I will limit it to the next question and then we'll close, was whether any of the cities have undertaken analysis of whether the buses are running as TCO positive or not. A lot of us, I think the cities have gone for a gross cost contract, so that you will know what the implication, the contractual costs are. So what is the experience right now from having adopted electric buses in your cities? Is it beneficial from a TCO point of view? And anybody could take this question.
So I think Delhi we're operating 300 electric buses, but we're to ascertain the impact. But definitely, I think electric buses, I think if you look at the TCO, it's much lower as compared to even the nearest CNG variant. And since we're also part of a larger aggregation carried out by CSL, we're able to get in more and competitive rates to the nearest CNG variant.
Wonderful. Thank you. And thank you so much to all the panelists for their time and to share their knowledge with all the attendees. I think it was a very interesting conversation. Also, we are on the kind of the cutting edge of where policy making is occurring. So it's very interesting to share your experiences. Thank you very much. And I think I'll back to you, Ashish.
Thank you, Vivek, and thank you to all the panelists for joining and sharing these insights and experiences from your geographies. I think the last question I wanted to just mention that cities are mapping it, especially Surat, and in the coming weeks, I think we'd be sharing some information online about how Surat is seeing the benefit of electrification, and just like Mr. Mohan mentioned, that the cities are seeing major benefits in terms of electrifying and cost savings for electrifying the fleets, the public transport fleets. I'm going to request my colleagues to pull up the slides. I think we've had a very good discussion and a flavor of the variety of things that different cities are doing at their end. Delhi as a city-state, but specific cities like Surat, Kochi, and Rajkot. We wanted to bring in Delhi in the discussion mainly because we hear so much about what Delhi is doing right and needs to be emulated. We thought it would be good to get Delhi into the discussion so that we are able to hear a little bit more specifics and details of what's happening in Delhi and how this is happening. And Surat definitely is doing many interesting things with a core team in place and taking actions on ground. Kochi has been involved in electrification through various departments, various initiatives. They don't come together yet. That's what we are recommending, that in a way, if we could do that, and that's what Dr. Rajan was pointing at, if we could find a way to bring it together in an integrated plan, that will work very well for that. And Rajkot is a city that is looking at electrification, starting with their public transport fleet electrification, but now moving on to charging infrastructure, building readiness, and talking to various stakeholders about how they could move ahead. So we're very happy to have all of you in the conversation and get your insights about what you're doing here. As ICLEI, we are very happy to continue the conversation and take the discussion a bit further into the details. For this, we are going to be having 3 more webinars following up from this conversation that we had today, specifically focusing on enabling framework for new buildings and existing buildings to make them EV ready. We are planning to have this around the 17th of May. And this would be followed up with 2 more webinars, one focusing on electrification of municipal fleet. Dr. Rajan pointed out some bits of, and Surat also, Mr. Chaudhary mentioned how Surat is doing this. But this is something that requires attention, detail, and focus on how we want to do this over a period of time, because suddenly we are not going to be able to convert all of our existing fleet into electric. So we would want to discuss this in another webinar, looking at financing of conversion also. And last, we would want to focus on the informal sector, e-rickshaws. How is this particular group of electric vehicles working? What is the regulatory and financial ecosystem that specially provides for them, and what additionally is required to focus on making the informal sector electrification in a way directed to also contribute to the targets that we are setting for ourselves at the city level that we are talking about. So this is what we are basically going to be doing. I am going to request, next slide, please. So these are the documents that we have developed. We're going to be sharing this information also online, but all of you who are here, if you want to have access to these reports, you can scan the QR code and have access to them. The synthesis report includes information from all the 10 cities that we interacted with and got a sense of what's happening at the national level on city electrification. For the cities of Kochi, Rajkot, and Surat, we have attempted to develop an e-mobility action plan, bringing together the various activities that they are already doing for electrification, as well as picking up priority actions that could be supported and the process methodology that could be followed to do this in an integrated, comprehensive manner, looking at where they would want to move ahead into the future. So you could access these also, and do write to us if you have any questions. We'd be happy to discuss this further. This is not a closed conversation. We would hope that with your inputs, with your suggestions, we are able to improve what we are telling the cities and find a way that we take our electrification approach in a sustained manner towards the end that we are aiming for. Next, please. So this is just the announcement of the webinar for the 17th. If you're interested, you would want to focus and know a little bit more about what city administrations could do for enabling the new and existing buildings in a city to be EV ready. Do join us. This is a little bit of a complex question. We would like to hear from you as well, but we are going to have experts joining us, sharing their thoughts. And specifically from Surat, we are having CREDI. Dr. Chaudhary mentioned about CREDI as an important partner of the SMC. They're going to share their thoughts on how we could do this at the city level. Next. So I think I'm going to ask everybody to just switch on their cameras. It'll allow us to take a picture as a memory of this conversation that we had. I'm going to ask my colleagues to take away the slide, and my team members who are joining us, Vijay, Nandini, Shashi, you could switch on your camera as well, Amar. Nilesh, if you're there, or Jasmine, sir, that's great. So it would be very useful for us to just have a memory of the interaction that we've had. And thank you so much for joining us. I want to mention that Vijay and Nandini have been involved in writing up these reports that we are sharing with you. And it's been a group effort as a team to bring together these discussions. It's a part effort. We hope we continue to do this. So please let us know if the picture has been clicked on. So I think we are good. We've taken this picture. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Vivek.
Thank you again, and thanks Vivek for bringing together the conversation. If you're interested, you can join for the subsequent conversations also. We'll approach some of you in case you're happy to join us in few of the panels coming on from this webinar for sharing your thoughts. But thank you so much for joining and sharing your experiences and your thoughts with other cities and participants on this call. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashish.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, all of you.